So getting started with a little bit of our story at Atlan. For those of you who don't know, at Atlan, we actually started out as a data team ourselves using data science for social good. We were doing a ton of work with folks like the United Nations, the World Bank, dealing with a wide variety and scale of data. So as you can see on the screen, at one point processing data for 500 million Indian citizens and billions of pixels of satellite imagery. While all of that sounds like very cool projects on paper, the reality on a daily basis was that it was not. So what you see on the screen, these are actually real life Slack messages that we've reconstructed from our own team. So messages like, what does this column name mean? Which data set should we use for this analysis? Like, this was like the standard day in our lives, right? I think we could actually make a whole factory of memes of our day in a life data chaos stories. Well, actually, we did. So, I mean, this was like just our day in the life, right? Like when someone messages you saying when they have a quick question about the data set, while sometimes it can be fun to look at these memes, the reality is that on a daily basis, this actually also led to a ton of nightmarish life experiences. So personally, for me, I remember when we were a data team ourselves, there was this one time where I got a call from one of the cabinet ministers of India, and he said, Prakalpa, the number on this dashboard is broken. And I was like, oh my God. I opened up my laptop, saw a 2x spike in the data, realized that something was wrong and didn't know what to do with it. And then went and called my project manager, who called my analyst, who called my engineer, who pulled out audit logs, but couldn't actually troubleshoot because he didn't know what the variables meant. I remember this one time where I, sat on the top of our terrace and legit cried for 3 hours because an analyst quit on me exactly a week before a major project was due. And he was the only one who knew everything about our data, right? And I was like, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to deliver this project to our client, right? And this was like the story of our lives. Like we were spending 50-60% of our time dealing with these kinds of issues. And we hit this breaking point and we realized we couldn't continue to scale like that. And we said, we have to find a better way to scale. So we got our entire team together and we started what we called the assembly line project. We used this methodology from the Google design sprints, and we basically, tried to turn every problem into an opportunity. So we said, HMW, how might we reduce repetitive tasks? How might we prioritize tasks across projects? How might we plan timelines better? How might we reduce dependencies on individuals? And then we basically tried to work backward from there to actually start building stuff to fix these problems. We started looking at teams around us, right? We tried to learn from product teams. We tried to learn Agile. We tried to learn from DevOps teams. We tried to learn from lean manufacturing and supply chain teams. And that was when we actually got it right. Over 2 years, we built tooling that made our team 6 times more agile. We went on to do things like build India's national data platform, which the Prime Minister himself uses. But what was really cool about that project was it was built by an 8-member team in 12 months, also one of the fastest of its kind globally. I iterated through these learnings and realized the one core insight that made a lot of this happen. It was this realization that in data teams, diversity is not a bug, it's a feature. Data teams are one of the most diverse teams that exist in the organizational fabric. Analysts, engineers, scientists, business, they all have their own tooling preferences, BI tools, warehouses, DBT. They all work on their own use cases and their own diverse problem statements, creating a diversity of assets, right? Tables, models, code, dashboards. That diversity is the only reality that makes data teams what they are today. And once we were able to realize that this diversity is not something that should be treated as a bug, but actually build around this diversity, we were able to figure out how we can actually make our team work better together and do awesome things. We went on to write this culture code manifesto that we call the data ops culture code. Saying things like data assets should actually be treated and maintained like assets, which means they should be reusable and reproducible. It's a team sport, right? And because it's a team sport, great collaboration requires a great system of trust. So when that number on a dashboard is broken, the analyst should know that it was actually the pipeline that failed and it wasn't the data engineer who didn't do their job. and optimize for agility. In today's world, automation by default, so data teams can actually move as quickly as they need to for the business. Since then, we ended up taking some of those tools that we built and said, hey, is there a way we can help data teams around the world? And opened up what you know as Atlan to other data teams around the world. In the last couple of years, we've been really fortunate to work with some amazing teams. And what's been super fulfilling is seeing sort of that industry come alive as well. In 2020, Gartner launched their inaugural report for data ops, in which they named Atlan as a cool vendor. Forrester Wave recently renamed their report on machine learning data catalogs to enterprise data catalogs for data ops, and Atlan was a top right leader. And it's been super fulfilling to see data ops sort of go from being this one-off thing that we wrote in a culture code to something that is actually turning into a mainstream way that data teams are working and using in their day-to-day work.